Hi there students, welcome back to another video lesson. So, after nating i-discuss yung third type of variation which is joint variation, we are now down to our last type which is combined variation. From the word combine, makikita nyo po dyan yung pinag-combine, pinagsamang direct, inverse, tsaka joint variation. So, our lesson objectives is to illustrate real-life situations involving combined variations. And then to translate combined variation statements as a relationship between two quantities given by a mathematical equation and vice versa. And finally, solve problems involving combined variation. So let's have combined variation. A combined variation is simply the combination of a direct and inverse and a joint variation. So, yung mga variations na pwede natin i-combine dito, direct, tsaka inverse. What else? Inverse, tsaka joint. So, the statement z varies directly as x and inversely as y may be translated mathematically as z is equal to kx over y, where k is the constant of variation. So, as you can see, meron tayo dyang direct variation from the word directly, tsaka yung inversely. So, yung direct variation po dito sa given statement is yung kx. And then, yung inversely is yung y. So, nag-act siya as denominator. And again, k is still the constant of variation. So, hindi pa rin po nagbago yan. So, combined variation statements can be translated as a relationship between two quantities given by a mathematical equation and vice versa. So, let's have the first activity. Write an equation for each combined variation statements. So, kagaya lang din po ng mga naunang types, pwede po nating i-translate yung mga statements, variation statements into an equation. So, let's have the first example. B varies directly as W and inversely as the square of D. So, this is B, capital B po, and then varies directly as W. And then inversely siya as the square of D. So, we have there square of D. Magkaiba po yung square tsaka yung square root. So, pwede natin siyang isulat as B is equal to K, the constant of variation, and then W. And then, since inversely siya, that is over the square of D, magiging D squared. So, ibig sabihin, yung ating statement can be translated as B is equal to KW all over D squared. So, our next example, Q varies jointly as the cube of P and inversely as R. So, kung kanina ang involved po na variation, direct tsaka inverse, so ngayon naman po, joint tsaka inversely. So, hindi po nawawala dyan yung inversely. Maaring mapalitan yung jointly ng directly, pero yung inversely, hindi po siya pwedeng palitan kapag combined. So, let's have Q equals the cube of P. So, sulat muna natin, hindi rin dapat po nawawala dito yung constant of variation. Anumang types ng variation ng gamitin, kailangan po nakasulat pa rin po yung K. And then, the cube of P. So, yung cube of P tsaka cube root of P, magkaiba po yun. So, kapag cube of P, P cube. Pag ganito po siya, cube root of P. Cube root of P. And then, inversely as R, all over R. So, our final answer will be Q is equal to KP cube all over R. For example number 3, W varies directly as the square root of H and inversely as J. So, W equals, again, the constant of variation, and then based from the given statement, the square root of h. Okay, that is square root of h. So kapag ni-remove po natin yung word na root, hindi po siya square root of h, magiging po siyang h squared. Okay? So since dito nandito yung root, yung word square root, ito po ang pagkakasulat niya. Radical sign, and then inversely as j all over j. So our final answer, w is equal to k square root of h all over j. So reminder lang po, kapag mali po yung ating equation, yung ating pong mga sagot, magiging mali din po. So dapat po sa equation of variation pa lang, tama na. So for the next example, the gas law states that the volume of an enclosed gas varies directly as the temperature T and inversely as the pressure P. So sulat lang natin siya as V for volume, and then varies directly as the temperature. Sulat lang natin yung K, constant of variation, and then temperature T, and then inversely as the pressure P over P. So ito po yung ating sagot. V is equal to KT all over P. So again, yung V volume, T yung temperature, and P pressure. So for our last example, the electrical resistance R of a wire varies directly as its length and inversely as the square of its diameter. So the electrical resistance using variable R equals varies directly as its length. So using L, so K and then L, inversely as the square of its diameter. So meron na naman po dyan, square of its diameter, that is d squared. So our answer will be R is equal to KL all over d squared. So for our last activity, solve the following combined variation word problems completely. So let's have problem number 1. If A varies directly as B and inversely as C, and A is equal to 64 when B is equal to 8 and C is equal to 3, find A when B is equal to 11 and C equals 6. So ang ating given problem ay combination ng direct variation and inverse variation. So yung formula niya or equation niya is A is equal to KB all over C. So yung KB dun sa direct variation, and then yung C dun sa inverse. So the value of A is 64. The value of B is 8. And then the value of C is 3. And then 64 is equal to K times 8, that is 8K, all over 3. And then cross multiply, 8K is equal to 64 times 3, and that is 192. Then we divide both sides by 8, so the value of K is 24. So meron na tayong value ng K, which is 24. Pwede na natin kunin yung A when B is equal to 11 and C is equal to 6. So using the same equation, A is equal to KB all over C. So A equals the value of K, which is 24, times the value of B, 11, all over the value of C, which is 6. So pwede nating i-cancel out yung 24 and 6 since meron silang common factor, which is 6. So 24 will become 4, and then 6 will become 1. So multiplying the remaining factors, 4 and 11, so the value of A when B is equal to 11 and C is equal to 6 is 44. So for the next problem, if W varies jointly as X and inversely as the square of Z, and W is equal to negative 6 when X is equal to 21 and Z is equal to 7. Find x when w is equal to 35 and z is equal to 3. So let's have the equation of variation. So if w varies jointly as x and inversely as the square of z, can be written as w is equal to kx all over the square of z, that is z squared. Ayan po ang kanyang equation of variation. And then, substitute natin yung mga given. So w is equal to negative 6, x is equal to 21, and z is equal to 7. So w, that is negative 6, equals k times the value of x, which is 21, over the value of z, which is 7. So that is 7 squared. Next, negative 6 is equal to k times 21, 21k, all over the square of 7, that is 7 times 7, 49. And then, mag-cross multiply tayo, that is 21k equals the product of 49 and negative 6. So 21k equals the product of 49 and negative 6 is negative 294. And then we divide both sides by 21. So the value of k is 14 or negative 14. Ayan. So the value of k is negative 14. And then find x when w is 35 and z is equal to 3. So w is equal to kx all over z squared. So w is 35 equals the value of k is negative 14 times the value of x, yung ating missing variable, all over z squared, so that is 3 squared. So 35 equals negative 14x all over 3 squared, that is 3 times 3, not 3 times 2. So that is 9. And then cross multiply negative 14x equals to the product of 35 and 9. So the product of 35 and 9 is 315. Now, i-divide natin siya by negative 14. So the value of k is negative 315 over 14. So pwede pa po siyang lowest term, or k is equal to the greatest common factor, which is 7. So pag dinivide natin sa 7 ang negative 315, that is negative 45. And then yung 14 sa 7, that is 2. So the value of k is negative 45 all over 2. Or pwede rin namang i-divide natin yung negative 45 sa 2. Magiging negative 22.5. So let's have problem number 3. If p varies directly as the square of q and inversely as the square root of r, and p is equal to 60 when q is equal to 6 and r is equal to 81. Find p when q is equal to 8 and r is equal to 144. So yung ating equation of variation will be p equals k, and then the square of p, that is q squared, and then inversely as the square root of r. Ayan. So, ganyan po yung kanyang equation of variation. And then, we substitute the given values. So, p is equal to 60. And then, k, and then times q squared, which is 6 squared, all over the square root of 81. Next, 60 is equal to k times 36. So 6 squared, that is 6 times 6, 36, all over the square root of 81, which is 9. Next, pwede tayong mag-simplify. So yung 36 tsaka 9, common factor nila is 9. So yung 9 magiging 1, yung 36 magiging 4. So magiging 4k is equal to 60. And then we divide both sides now by 4. Therefore, the value of k is 15. And then, find p when q is equal to 8 and r is equal to 144. So, using the same equation, kq squared all over the square root of r, that is p, is equal to the value of k, which is 15, times the value of q, which is 8 squared all over the square root of 144. Then, p is equal to 15 times 8 squared, that is 8 times 8, so 64. And then all over the square root of 144, that is 12. And then, p is equal to 15 times 64 or all over 12. Then, pwede nating i-cancel yung 15 tsaka yung 12. May common factor sila, which is 3. So, 15 will become 5. And then, 12 will become 4. And P is equal to 5 times 64 all over 4. So, again, pwede natin i-cancel yung 64 tsaka 4. So, 4 will become 1 and then 64 will become 16. So, the value of P is the product of 5 and 16. And that is 80. For our last problem, the number of chickens varied directly as the number of goats and inversely as the number of pigs. When there were 10 chickens and 40 goats, there were only 2 pigs. How many pigs went with 5 chickens and 20 goats? So, the number of chickens, so C, varies directly as the number of goats. So, G, so pwede natin gamitin K, then G nga, all over the number of pigs, so P. And then we substitute the values, the given values. So, 10 chickens, 40 goats when there were only 2 pigs. So, 10 chickens, that is 10, is equal to K times the number of goats, which is 40, all over the number of pigs, which is 2. So, pwede natin i-cancel yung 40 tsaka 2. So, 2 will become 1. And then 40 will become 2, 20. So, yung common factor kasi nila is 2. So, and then, rewrite natin 20k is equal to 10. And then, we divide both sides by 20. So, the value of k is 1/2. Now, how many pigs went with 5 chickens and 20 goats? So, using the same equation, C is equal to kg all over P. So, how many pigs went with 5 chickens and 20 goats? So, given yung number of chickens, which is 5, and then K is 1/2, times the number of goats, which is 20, all over P. Next, 5 is equal to 1/2 of 20. So, kalahati ng 20, of course, is 10. All over P. And then we cross multiply now. This will become 5P is equal to 10. And then divide both sides by 5. So, P is equal to 2. Therefore, there are 2 pigs went with 5 chickens and 20 goats. So, after nating i-discuss yung types of variations, so, next topic na po tayo will be loss of exponents. So, kailangan po nating i-discuss muna yung loss of exponents. It's because applied po yan sa pinaka-main topic natin which is radicals. So, yun lang. Maraming salamat.